All right, let's get right into it. For decades, we've all been taught that blood sugar is the be-all and end-all of our metabolic health. But what if I told you that's not the whole story? Not even close. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on what's really driving the bus on issues like insulin resistance, and the answer is probably not what you're thinking.
It all starts with this really simple but kind of profound mystery. Have you ever wondered why you can go out to eat with a friend, order the exact same thing, and you feel amazing afterwards while they feel totally wiped out, or vice versa? What on earth is going on there? And look, this isn't just a hunch or a feeling. It is backed up by some incredible data. In the massive Zoe Predict 1 study, they gave thousands of people the exact same standardized meal and then tracked their blood sugar. And the results? They were just all over the map. Some people's blood sugar barely budged, while others shot through the roof. That kind of wild variation is a giant clue that something much deeper is at play than just the food on the plate.
And that leads us to the first huge piece of the puzzle. It turns out that blood glucose number, the thing we're all so obsessed with tracking, well, it's only showing us one page of a much bigger hidden story.
Okay, so this is absolutely crucial to understand. Imagine two people. After a meal, they both have the exact same totally normal blood glucose reading. Looks great, right? But here's the catch. What we don't see is that person A's body just released a little bit of insulin to handle it, while person B's pancreas had to work like crazy, pumping out a massive flood of insulin to get to that exact same number. That right there, that's the deeper story.
And this whole situation has a name: insulin resistance. It's what happens when your cells, especially your muscle cells, start to, well, ignore insulin's knock at the door. They don't want to take up the glucose. So your pancreas has to shout louder and louder by releasing more and more insulin. But eventually it gets exhausted and just can't keep up with the demand. And why is this so important? Well, because this isn't some rare fringe condition. An absolutely mind-boggling 50% of Americans are estimated to have either pre-diabetics or full-blown type 2 diabetes. And the bedrock, the fundamental issue at the very core of both of these conditions, is insulin resistance. If we want to understand our modern health crisis, we have to understand. So the billion-dollar question is, what's causing our cells to go deaf to insulin's call in the first place? Well, the answer introduces our main character, or maybe our main villain in this story. It's a concept called the fat spillover effect, or its scientific name, lipotoxicity. Lipotoxicity? It literally just means fat toxicity. It's what happens when fat starts to build up in places it has no business being. You can think of your body's fat cells as a really safe, specialized warehouse for storing energy. But when that warehouse gets completely full, the overflow, these things called free fatty acids, have to go somewhere. And they end up spilling into your liver, your pancreas, and most importantly for our story, your muscle cell. Now, this dangerous spillover comes from two primary places. First, it comes from our very own fat cells when they get so stuffed that they just can't hold anymore. They literally start to leak these free fatty acids into our blood. And second, it can come straight from the food we eat, specifically from certain types of fat that get dumped directly into our bloodstream right after a meal. But, and this is a huge but, not all fats are created equal here. It's the saturated fats, the kind you find mostly in animal products like meat and dairy, that are the real problem. They create these toxic byproducts inside our cells and fuel inflammation. On the flip side, you have unsaturated fats from plants like olives, nuts, and avocados. The body seems to know how to handle these much better, and they might even be beneficial. Let's use an analogy to really lock this in. Think of your blood sugar system like a bathtub. The tap? That's your liver, letting glucose into the system. The bathtub itself is your bloodstream, where the glucose collects. Now, the most important part, the drain. The drain is your muscle tissue. Your muscles are designed to be a giant sponge, soaking up about 80% of the glucose from your blood. Lipotoxicity, that fat spillover, is like someone pouring thick, sticky grease right down that drain. The fat gums up the works in your muscle cells, blocking them from taking in sugar. And what happens when the drain is clogged? The bathtub overflows. That's high blood sugar. Now, the really scary part is that this isn't just a one-time plumbing problem. Once this process gets going, it actually fuels itself, creating a nasty downward spiral that just gets worse and worse over time. Let's walk through this vicious cycle. Step 1. Lipotoxicity clogs up the muscle drain with fat. Step 2. Because the drain is clogged, insulin resistance sets in and your blood sugar stays high. Step 3. Those constantly high insulin levels mess with your brain's hunger signals, so you don't feel full and you want to eat more. Step 4.
You take in more energy, which gets stored as, you guessed it, more fat. This makes your fat cells even more overstuffed. And finally, step 5, what do those overstuffed fat cells do? They spill even more fat into the bloodstream, which makes the original lipotoxicity even worse, and the whole cycle starts again, but with more momentum this time.
You know, Dr. Will Bolsiewicz has had the perfect way to describe this. He says that if you're already caught in this cycle, eating more saturated fat isn't just adding a log to the fire, it's like pouring gasoline all over it. You are literally mainlining the very free fatty acids that are accelerating this entire destructive process. Okay, so I know that sounds pretty bleak. That's the problem. But the good news is the science also points to a really powerful solution, a way to break this cycle. And it's not some fancy new drug or complicated diet. Believe it or not, the hero of this story is something incredibly simple, something our ancestors ate tons of, but that's almost completely missing from our modern diets. It's dietary fiber. So, how in the world does fiber perform this magic trick? Well, it's not actually the fiber itself. Fiber is the food for our good gut bacteria. When we feed them what they love, they thank us by producing these amazing healing compounds called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. And these SCFAs are like a metabolic superhero team. They travel to our muscles and help unclog the drain. They send a signal to our fat cells to stop spilling over. They even help protect our liver from getting fatty. They literally attack the problem at its source, from every single angle.
Now, that all sounds great in theory, but is there any hard proof? You bet there is. Let's look at the evidence from a really fascinating study by a researcher named Kevin Hall. So, in this incredible study, they had a group of people live in a special lab where they could control everything they ate. For 2 weeks, they put them on a high saturated fat, low fiber diet. The result? Their blood was swimming with free fatty acids, and their blood sugar spiked like crazy after meals. Then they took the exact same people and switched them to a low saturated fat, high fiber diet. The change was absolutely dramatic. The fat in their blood plummeted, and their blood sugar control became amazing. They essentially gave these people insulin resistance and then took it away, just by changing their food. This really just says it all. Those short-chain fatty acids, the things our gut microbes make from fiber, they're not just a little tweak. They go to work everywhere, at the liver, at the muscles, at the fat cells. They orchestrate this system-wide effort to reverse the damage at its very root.
So all of this brings us to one final, really powerful question. For years, we've been obsessed with counting calories, carbs, and fat as if they're just numbers in an equation. But what if the real secret to fixing our metabolism isn't just about what we eat, but about who we're feeding inside of us? Could nourishing our gut microbiome be the true key to healing our metabolism from the ground up? Looking at this evidence, it seems like a question we can't afford to ignore.